Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfoud, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
This is an encore presentation of Faith and Sports. Tune in to hear Faith and Sport live Monday afternoons from 2 to 3 right here on Carolina Catholic Radio Charlotte, AM 1270. Well, a good Monday afternoon to you. Welcome to Carolina Catholic Radio Charlotte, AM 1270. Also streaming live at carolinacatholicradio.org and at the Carolina Catholic Radio app. You're tuned in for the most fun hour on AM radio every Monday afternoon. It's Faith and Sport. I'm your co-host and producer, Chris, and in the studio, we've got your host, Dr. John Acquaviva, and joining us today, live in the studio, our good buddy and special guest host, Ed Billick.
Holy smokes, what a... Hey, we got to let the crowd... We have an in-studio crowd. Thank you, folks. Everybody sit down. Let's start the show here.
They go crazy for Ed.
I know. They love Ed.
They go crazy for Faith and Sport.
That's right.
Monday afternoon.
That's right. Why wouldn't they go crazy? Folks, I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Ed Billick sitting beside me. Across the glass is Chris Pressler. We're having a good time already. Welcome to the show, however, wherever you're listening. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to have Super Bowl talk with Ed. We're going to have our hit and miss with Ed. We're going to have our weekend headlines
with
Ed. And then we're going to have, listen to this. This is fantastic. Our guest today is Deacon Dan Borne. He's a deacon, permanent deacon in St. John Vianney in the Diocese of Baton Rouge, but he's also the public address announcer for LSU Tiger football.
What a great job.
So he's the one who says, ladies and gentlemen, the coach of your LSU Tigers, Ed Orgeron.
This will be great. We've talked with him before. I can't wait to get him back on.
He was on the old version on Radio Maria, and he's going to come back on, and he's great. He's really excited about being back on the show. We're going to do the quick Q&A with Dr. A, and then we have a new category at the very end. You know, we've done our fact or Cathlete of the week. We've done our stat of the week. This time we're doing our sports fact of the week. Ed Billick, welcome, buddy. It's great to have you in every first Monday of every month. Let's do this. Let's talk about the Super Bowl in general, and then we'll go in specific about our hit and miss. First of all, how was your weekend, buddy?
Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And here today in Charlotte, North Carolina, it's a beautiful 72 degrees outside. Now, I know we're going to be playing the show throughout the week.
That's right.
So it'll be 72 degrees every day when we play the show, whether it is or not.
That's right.
I know. Great weekend.
And how was the Super Bowl? First of all, where did you spend it?
We went over to my sister-in-law and her friends. They have a friend there was a small little group of us, good people, St. Bonaventure grads, both he and her, Dave and Teresa, and was with them and a couple other couples, and we enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah, good stuff. And did you watch the whole game?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and so what are your thoughts? So you go first, then we'll just ping-pong back and forth.
You know, I tried not to read everyone else's opinions. I want to stick to my total opinion. I thought it was a tremendous game. Held the attention the whole way. Pulled for Kansas City. Right. Then I finally said to myself, Chris, that okay, San Francisco's going to win. They deserve it. They had a great year. Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan, they deserve to win.
Right.
And then I'm saying, no, but Kansas City can still pull it out, and maybe they will. And guess what?
They did.
Yeah, I think Kansas City was more deserved of it because they haven't had a Super Bowl win since 1970.
Well, certainly a lot of people are pulling for that reason. A lot of people like Patrick Mahomes. Not only is he the greatest quarterback in the game at a really young age, but he's also the most exciting. He's going to win the MVP this year. He's a Super Bowl winner now, but also a lot had to do with Coach Andy Reid, right?
Andy Reid. He said he was going to get himself a big cheeseburger. Might even make it
Did
a
he
double.
Say that?
Might even make it a double.
Well, good for him, and I think he can afford it.
Yes,
right? He can supersize.
Big Red finally got a ring.
No, I like him too, but I don't think that's necessarily a reason to. I always want the better team to win, but I do understand the nostalgia, right? People want to see a team that hasn't won in a long time. They want to see Andy Reid win, and of course, you might remember he's gone through some bad times, right? With his family and so forth. So yeah, good for them. Good for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Good for the fans. Good for the fans of Kansas City. A good friend of mine, Adrian Bozard, he and I were texting back and forth. He said, I'm glad we're texting because I've lost my voice. I wouldn't be able to talk to you.
And he's a KC fan.
Big KC fan.
How do you know this guy?
I worked with him at Frito-Lay.
I've never, I made this. Chris will probably support me on this. I've never in my life met a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Oh, come on.
No, I mean that. I mean, how many do you know other than, what's this guy's first name?
Well, there's Adrian Bozart, Mark Jones, the whole team out there in Topeka, Kansas. They're all Chiefs fans.
You bet. Well, yeah. Topeka. Who's been to Topeka, Kansas? You have, obviously,
Dorothy.
right?
Yeah,
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. No, this was great, especially coming off of last year. Do you remember the score of last year's game?
No,
when
I do not.
It was 13-3, and people were booing. If you opened up your windows during last year's Super Bowl, you could hear people in your neighborhood booing because it was a pretty boring game, right? The New England Patriots won over the Rams. The Rams had this prolific offense. McVay was thought to be this prolific offensive coordinator and play caller
kind of guy.
They could only score 3 points, and the Patriots were good. They're always good, but are they that good where you can only score 3 points? I think they kind of, maybe felt some pressure in the Super Bowl, and they just couldn't deliver. But overall, it was a bad, and I thought it delivered this year. I agree with you. It totally delivered.
Right after they won, you get your hats, get your T-shirts, get all your paraphernalia. They have them printed up for both teams. You know that.
Well, of course they do, yeah.
So where do they go with the San Francisco championships?
Well, I think the local Goodwill would have
I think they send them to overseas somewhere.
Yeah.
Like San Francisco won the Super Bowl, yeah.
Either that. Well, I know there's a bunch of people, cruising through the dial going, is it AM 1280, AM 1260, but it's AM 1270. So I think people are just coming to the show, joining us.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the show. This is Faith and Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I teach exercise science at Wingate University, but every Monday I'm here, and every fourth Monday Ed's with us, and each and every Monday we have our producer Chris sitting across, and he giggles at just about everything Ed and I say, so it's wonderful to have him along. In fact, if I ever did a stand-up comedian routine, I want Chris in the front row because he would at least smile. He may not laugh at everything I say.
No, he could do his Elvis Presley impersonation.
That's all right, Mama. All right, so enough of that singing. So let's get back to the game. I want to bring out a couple points here.
Yeah, what'd you think of it? I mean, you're a big sports nut.
No, I love it, of course. And, I was watching with family and friends, and it was all family yesterday, and we were really enjoying it. And it's really neat because my oldest are 8 and 9. We have 9, 8, 6, and 4, and the 4 and the 6-year-old just like the food, right? They just were happy that we had pizza and we had, chips and dip and all that. But the 8 and 9-year-old were actually watching it, especially my son Luke. He's a genuine fan now, and he was asking me questions, and he was rooting for the Chiefs. And God bless him, he was rooting for the Chiefs because earlier this week I said I kind of want the Chiefs to win. But, as the game went on, I found myself rooting for the 49ers. And he was so confused by that. He goes, but Dad, you said the Chiefs earlier this week. And I go, yeah, but now the game's going. I kind of like them. But I told him, I said, son, I just want to see a good game. Neither team is the Detroit Lions, which we may never see, right, as everybody knows. But the game delivered. It was exciting. And even though it kind of turned out to be, it was one-sided in that fourth quarter, but it really was only one-sided after, with 8 minutes left. They scored 21 points with 8 minutes left.
Pat Mahomes was nervous at first. He wasn't himself. And I think finally in the third quarter, someone said, I don't think he's going to get his act together. I don't think he's going to be Pat Mahomes. And he finally did.
I know. In fact, one of the issues that everybody knows of is they were down big to the Texans and the Titans in the playoffs before this by double-digit points. This was the third game in a row since the playoffs began in the 3 games that they've played that they were down 10 points or more. Of course, the one game they were down 24 points and they came back and won. They stormed back in that game and crushed them. They scored 52 points. I think the score was, 52-31 or something like that?
During the 24 hours of pregame, 24 hours, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
But when
Do you watch that, by the way?
Some of it. Yeah. In and out. I mean, I'm into the Hall of Fame stuff.
Yeah,
all the Steelers going in. And
sure.
How many Detroit Lions went in this year? No, never mind. Washington Redskins? No.
I heard... I think it was on my phone. I got it popped up on my phone saying that Sam Mills didn't make it into the Hall of Fame this time.
Right.
Yeah,
everybody was hoping that he would be.
He was a great player
for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, it was a great Panther.
Did you guys see Pat Mahomes as he went on the field? He went in the end zone, took a knee.
Yeah, I saw that.
He said a prayer, and I'm sure he said a prayer, but the camera didn't stay on him long enough.
That's right.
But those guys are praying that it's the biggest game of their lives.
That's right. And I'm sure they pray what virtually everybody prays for. They know God doesn't really care who wins. I think even a kid knows that, right? But what he's praying for is give me the courage to play well, give me the courage to persevere through any pain or any other things that come up during the game. And, of course, he's probably praying that everybody stays healthy. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
In fact, that's really good stuff.
Absolutely.
So other stuff I wanted to point out, you know what it reminded me of? In fact, it goes back to your point earlier when I don't even think it was nerves after a while, which it could very, very well could have been. And I don't think it was play calling. I think San Francisco's that good. They showed they very much deserve to be there. And let's face it, if they played 10 times, it could easily be San Francisco 6-4 or 5-5, right?
I would think we're going to see these two teams quite often in the next 5 years.
I would like to say that, but every time we say that, one of the teams is out. I mean, look at LA didn't even make the playoffs this year.
Exactly.
They were the best team. They were the best team in the NFC last year.
But back to this game, the run game, the San Francisco displayed.
I know, and that's where I thought they kind of choked it up there. In the end of the game, when they needed first downs, that's all they needed. They were up by 10 points, and even when they're up by 3, they 3-and-outed every single time. And in the first quarter especially, but up until that point, they were running, and they were doing these reverses and fake reverses and these shuffle passes. They were doing all these different plays. They were confusing the Kansas City Chiefs, and they were getting first downs. They could not get a first down because they started running straight up the gut and doing drop-back straight passes. Did you hear what his name is? Frank Clark. He plays defensive end for the Kansas City Chiefs. And they put a microphone in front of him after the game. Did you hear what he said? He goes, they were really fooling us. We did not know where the ball was. And he goes, and finally we found our ground. But if you ask me, the Kyle Shanahan kind of tightened up at the end. And he was like, let's just preserve the lead. Let's just do some basic play calling. And I think he tightened up, and that's one of the reasons. That's the main reason.
It was just a great contest. It was a great contest. It's nice to say for a Super Bowl.
No doubt. I enjoyed it. But going back to what you said about that, you know what it reminded me of? Let's go back a few years when Cam Newton was the MVP for the Carolina Panthers, and the Carolina Panthers were in the Super Bowl against Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos had one of the best defenses since the Baltimore Ravens in the early 2000s. They were outstanding.
Von Miller
and company. But Von Miller was all over the field. And you know what that reminded me of yesterday? Was that game in which I never saw Cam Newton so frustrated. He could not get out of the pocket. When he tried to scramble, when he tried to find time to pass, he could not do it. And that's what Mahomes was yesterday. But then they found a way to win it. When they were down 10 with 8 minutes to go, he just goes, nah, it's time. And he did the same thing he did in the previous 2 playoff games. They scored 21 unanswered points. The score was 20-10. Yeah. The final was 31-20.
Yeah.
Really impressive victory. It wasn't necessarily impressive for Mahomes throughout, but he did the job.
You know, a fun thing we always do, we do the squares. So it was $1 a square. So my wife had 10 squares, I had 10 squares, and she goes, hey, honey, do you have $20 on you? So I gave her 20.
Yeah.
Well, guess who won the first quarter?
You guys did.
She did.
Okay.
She won.
What was the first quarter score? 10-3 maybe?
Yeah, it was
7-7. No, 7-7 maybe. I don't know.
3-0. Anyhow, guess who has the $20? Yesterday it was in my pocket. Today it's in hers.
But don't you guys have joint bank accounts, brother? Isn't that the way it works?
We do,
okay.
but you know.
All right. By the way, do you guys
what's mine is hers, and what's hers is hers.
By the way, did you guys sign a nuptial agreement long ago?
No, we don't do that stuff. We've been happily married 38 years this June. Come on.
Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport. This is Carolina Catholic Radio. Joining me in studio today is every once in a while co-host Ed Billick. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Every once in a while you're going to hear Chris Pressler, the producer, chime in. We got a great show today. We're talking Super Bowl right now. I think we're going to shift gears to the hit and miss. Anything else you want to chime in about the Super Bowl?
No, we could talk halftime, but that's not. I mean, it's not family friendly.
What about your favorite Super Bowl commercial?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mine?
Yeah.
The 2, of course, were the Cheetos.
Yeah.
Can't touch us.
Can't touch us.
Yeah.
And Bill Murray reprising his role because it was Groundhog Day yesterday. I thought the Jeep commercial was done very well.
It was. Yeah. What about you, Chris?
And one I liked was I don't know if you saw or not, but they had like all the characters from like Mr. Clean, Bounty,
Peanut,
and Charmin.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty good.
It was Procter and Gamble.
They were talking like if everybody comes together, they can take care of any kind of mess.
That's right. but wasn't that at the funeral of Mr. Peanut? Right? Wasn't that?
No,
that was different.
That was a different commercial.
Okay,
but yeah, they had the funeral of Mr. Peanut, and
and of course
he came back as baby Mr.
Peanut. Well,
Peanut.
He's gone, but now, and my wife goes. It was so funny. My wife they were watching the Today Show or something the day before the Super Bowl or 2 days before the Super Bowl, and so they said something about Mr. Peanut's dead, and they had been running that commercial, and they had been advertising on the internet and YouTube and so forth. You know what I'm talking about? And my wife goes, yeah, right, like he's dead.
We always ask ourselves, what's the return on investment?
And what is the return on investment?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And no one knows, but they keep, what do they spend?
5.6
per minute.
Yeah.
Is it per minute or per 30 seconds?
Oh no, your rate's per 30 seconds
yeah,
now.
I think, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But no, I like the Groundhog Day. I'm a huge Bill Murray fan. And if you notice, the other guy going, he's calling Bill Murray down when he's walking down the street.
No.
He reprised his role as well. They recreated that whole set. That was really good. Yeah.
And just for you Super Bowl fans, next year in Minnesota, the following year down in Atlanta. Get your tickets now. We're going.
There you go. Is that
Faith
right?
and Sport will be live on location at Radio Row. and then in Miami, back in Miami in Super Bowl 54.
That's a good idea.
And then out to L.A. to that new mega super stadium they're building. So those are the upcoming Super Bowls.
You were looking at me when you said, Faith and Sport's going, but I was looking at Chris. You should see how big his eyes got. Like, we have the budget for that?
Yeah, we'll be on Radio Row here in 2 years. So, folks, you'll have to turn in live. Come by and we'll autograph something for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hope David's listening.
That's right. I think he is. He's
Our
like,
man, David.
it's like talking about big eyes right now, man. His eyes are big as saucers. Don't say that on the air.
Radio Row in Atlanta.
Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Ed Billick is the co-host today. We're talking about Super Bowl and Super Bowl commercials and so forth, but we're going to move on to the hit and miss. We got weekend headlines coming up just before the break. Then we'll have a break. We'll have Deacon Dan Borne coming on. He is a permanent deacon, but he's also the public address announcer of the NCAA football champions, LSU Tigers. I can't wait to talk to this guy.
Google him before he comes on here in another 15 minutes. Check him out because it's going to be a fun discussion with him.
Yeah, he's great and he's fun and so forth. And we'll do the quick Q&A with Dr. A, and then we'll end the whole thing with the sports fact of the week, and that's going to allow us to come back around to Super Bowl talk. Brother, it's your turn for the hit or miss of the week. What is it, a hit or a miss?
Oh, it was a big hit.
Let's hear it.
It was a big hit, and it was on Saturday. A friend of ours here in town, Bryce Johnson, maybe some of you have heard of what he does. He does this podcast called Unpacking It, and it's sports fans following Jesus and following the Lord. Well, he hosted at a local church here. It was called Super Saturday, a man breakfast, and what he had was 3 NFL players, 2 former NFL players, LaVon Kirkland of the Steelers and Corey Miller of the New York Giants, and a current NFL player, Andy Lee, who kicks for the Arizona Cardinals. Currently.
Got it.
And the whole intent was a breakfast. It's a buffet breakfast, and you come in, and there were over 200 men there. It's a small group done big, and many of you are part of small groups at your church, whether it be Garcia or whatever. This was at a larger scale, and it was non-denominational, of course. But what these guys did, the 3 of them, they talked NFL stories. They did their Super Bowl picks, told little stories about the NFL. So you're warming up the crowd, basically. But there were gentlemen in their 80s there. There were children there, or kids, their dads brought them. There were all ages. And so all 3 guys, it went on for an hour and a half of discussion where each one of them talked about their faith after they talked about the game. Sure. And they talked about God moments and when the Lord came into their lives, and they talked their childhood. And talked about some of the tragedies they all dealt with, or some of the evil things that happened to them, how the good Lord turned them around. Yeah. It was educational, it was emotional, but very much like all of us have those moments. Right. All of us have those God moments or those times where our faith was tested. Yeah. And it was reflective. You sat there, thought about yourself, but here these NFL players, as you assume, are bigger and better than us, just regular guys, and talking about their lives and talking about their faith journey, done up very well, and that was a true hit for me for the week. Ran some folks I know there, and of course, being a Steeler fan, LaVon Kirkland talked about Bill Cowher and the leadership he provided. But when they started talking about their own faith, their own stories, some tears to the eyes, a few claps, some standing applauses. All 3 of them were strong men of faith, and it was great to see.
That's neat to hear. And go back into how you started the segment. Is Unpacking It. Where can people hear this? Is it through the internet? I'm sure it's probably unpackingit.com.
What Bryce would take you, go to www.unpackingit.com. And there's podcasts there. He has these kind of breakfasts and such from time to time. Bryce Johnson, he is very much a man of faith, and he enjoys blending faith and sport.
I like those two. I've heard of that before.
You've heard of that.
In fact, if I ever get the energy and or the time and the money, I'm going to start a radio show and call it pretty much by the same name. Chris, how does that sound to you?
Yeah, that's a catchy name.
We can put you across in the glass, and you can produce the show. And every once in a while, we'll bring in Ed to co-host the show with us.
Wow, that sounds great. Let's do it.
Because in life no, I'm getting serious here. In life, you have Bible studies, you have a lot of different things. A way to bring folks to God, and
of course.
Acquaviva, you do this very well, is blending your faith with sports.
No, it's two of my favorite pastimes for sure, and I mean that. I'm passionate about both of them, and that's why I had the idea for it, and that's why you're aboard, right? I remember first time talking to you, I was standing in our dining room, and I said, "You interested in this?" And you said, "Absolutely," because we were going to the same huge, we were attending the same huge parish, St. Matthew, but we never met, and you like the idea, and I think it's still to this day a great idea, and it's an ongoing
ministry
thing.
That Carolina Catholic Radio gives these microphones for us to talk about our faith and talk about sports. I don't do this for free. We do it for free. We do it because it's a ministry for all of you, the listeners.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to switch gears. Mine has something to do with the NFL. In fact, directly with the NFL as well. It goes down a little different road. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is a pretty amazing story. Okay, it goes back to the Super Bowl. So Super Bowl I, right, takes place back in 1967. It's between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Although CBS and NBC both aired it, now I have to look into this right further. Like, there's only 3 stations at the time.
But wait, you're a little bit younger than I. Do you remember watching it?
No, I remember the Super Bowl and the playoffs being on around 1970.
Okay, I watched this first game.
Did you really?
AFC,
you watched it?
Yeah, the NFC AFC Championship.
That's what it's right. In fact, when did they first call it the Super Bowl? I want to say
I think it was the third one.
The third one they actually called it the Super Bowl.
But this was at the LA Coliseum, I believe,
that's right.
Which
that's
is still standing.
Yeah,
surprisingly.
Of course. So, either way, even though I should say CBS and NBC both aired it, no footage of this game exists through them. Only one copy exists to this day, and it's owned by this layperson called Troy Haupt. And now there's a legal standoff between Haupt and the NFL. And so what he has done, he said, he had it somehow appraised, the value of this. I think it's on 4 different 8mm tapes, right, the reels. And Sports Illustrated made a comment and said, this is worth $1 million. So he went to the NFL, and guess how much the NFL offered him? Now, remember, he wants $1 million. This is the only copy of Super Bowl I that exists. They offered him, the NFL did, $30,000. Of course, he was insulted. He thought it was worth far more than that. And he felt like the little guy, that he was being crushed by the big guy, right? And by the way, I want to say this was brought to the attention by one of our regular listeners, a guy by the name of Frank. And Frank said, you might want to discuss this sometime on the show. And I thought this was a perfect time and a perfect story to do it, right? The day after the Super Bowl. So what this Troy Haupt has the idea for, he pursues this through a different avenue, and he wants to make it like a documentary of sorts. So create a 2-hour documentary and just weave the footage into this.
You think ESPN would be excited about that, like the 30 for 30
That's
or their
right.
60 series to grab a hold of this?
But I'm wondering, that was one of my thoughts too. And you mentioned when we were off air that why wouldn't the NFL Hall of Fame want a piece of this as well? They might have offered it to them as well. They could run, like for instance, as my buddy said, he goes, yeah, they could just run it on a loop all day, right? They could have it. It would be a way to make sure it's in a safe spot. It would make sure that it's being seen by the masses. There's got to be tens of thousands of people that go to Canton, Ohio every year.
2 years later, we landed on the moon, and there's footage of that. The Kennedy assassination was 4 years before there. There's footage. It's just hard to believe. Well, the notoriety wasn't there. I mean, it was just a championship game, before baseball season started.
That's right.
But it is surprising that is the only one.
I know.
And for the NFL, $1 million is nothing.
It's nothing to them.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is like the little guy getting squashed by the big guy. Yeah, and that was the kind of way that
what our listeners think about this. I mean,
I'd love to hear from folks on that. But you know how most people are going to think, Ed. Most people are going to side with this guy, Troy Haupt. He's going to. the way that people think of these things is, even though I didn't know that I had a diamond ring under my bed, if I find the diamond ring under my bed in my house, it's still worth something. Just because I found it just yesterday doesn't mean it's not worth the $1 million that it's worth. And I think it's the same thing about this. And I think the NFL is trying to strong arm this guy, going, this is all we're offering. Now, here's the problem. The NFL has said, if you put this on in any way, shape, or form, this is NFL property, that we're going to sue you. And so one of the things that these two producers of this documentary are doing, they're lawyering up, basically. They're trying to raise money, maybe through some other, maybe their personal monies, but other people that might be interested in this project, and they're going to try to secure it, because when they do run it, and what they want to do is run it before next year's Super Bowl, like maybe ESPN or maybe even NBC or ABC, somebody, they're willing to sell it to them and they'll air it, but they think that they're going to have to lawyer up because the NFL is going to come steaming.
How do we follow this story? What's the guy's name again?
Troy Haupt. His last name is spelled Haupt. And from what I gathered from the story, his dad was at the game in Miami, and he filmed it on a projector, an 8mm projector. And so, is it professionally done? I don't know, but my guess is, in fact, if they were smart, what they would do is release little clips of it. And that way people could see the quality.
There should be an audio version around where they blend in the local CBS feed or the NBC feed to match it up to the audio, to the video.
Yeah, maybe so. Because there was, they had professional announcers, but I have a feeling that with the video went the audio, right? They're probably together. But it's possible somebody, like there was a radio version of it. Do you think it was on radio at the time, Ed?
Oh, yeah, I think
you think?
So. Yeah.
I'm not sure that it would have been, but I guess.
You've sparked my interest. I'm going to dig into this.
So, and folks, whatever it's worth, there's more to be said about this story, but I want to thank our listener, Frank, for bringing this to our attention. And this is a hit, or this is my miss, because I think this is one more time where the NFL has something of value, and they're not quite recognizing the value.
And if it's Troy, say, okay, I'll take your $1 million. Offer me $1 million, and here's the charities I'm going to give it to.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to do that. It's in his ownership. It's his father's and so forth. Now it's in his ownership. Let him do with it what he wants. But I like his attitude. He's like, this is for the masses. And if I give it to the NFL, who knows when they'll show it? They might just show it once every 2 years, once every 5 years. And that's one neat thing about him owning it through this company of producers. They can run it when they want.
Watch what happens next week. You'll get a call between now and next show, guys, and one of our Faith and Sport listeners will say, my dad videotaped the TV from the 8mm camera, and I got it all. Now what's mine worth?
Yeah, that's
There'll be call copies
No.
up.
In fact, you've seen the movies or the film of somebody doing a TV show back in the 60s and 70s. The quality is awful. I think this is much higher than that, but I haven't seen it. I'm just reading about it like everybody else.
Sure, that's cool.
Yeah, very good. Okay,
so that's a hit or a miss.
Well, that was our miss, man. The NFL, they frustrate me all the time when it comes to money, and they have all this money, they just don't shell it out when it's a just situation. So, listen, let's do this. Let's turn to our weekend headlines. Chris, do we have some music to cue up with this, buddy, or not?
Yes, we do.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition.
There you go, folks. All right, just a couple things to go over. We're going to go into a break, and then after our break, remember, stay in your seats. We got Dan Borne, and then after Dan, we got our sports fact of the week. So let's just do a couple headlines. In the NFL, of course, the Super Bowl was yesterday. You and I, Ed, just got done talking a lot about the things dealing with that. But the big news in local football is Greg Olsen has stepped away from the Panthers, and it looks pretty clear that he is going to be open to signing with somebody else. In fact, I said this just before we went on the air. Watch for him to sign with the Patriots and get the ball thrown to him from Tom Brady. They need a tight end.
Write that down, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And if Cam Newton exits, I think this would put the Carolina Panthers into full rebuilding mode, which means 2-14 next year, 3-13. But they do have that new great coach rule, and I think he's going to take them places. Major League Baseball, the big news is that the Astros have hired Dusty Baker. He's been with 4 teams before. By the way, he's taken all 4 of those teams to the playoffs. And I think it's a good fit. This is a seasoned manager. This is somebody who I think is going to calm this storm in Houston. But the main thing, it's a different guy.
22 seasons of experience with zero connections to anything.
Yeah, he's
of a scandal.
That's
so
right.
He brings stability. He brings a little paternal leadership.
They didn't hire him for nothing, right?
Right.
And in just a few days, pitchers and catchers report. It's crazy.
Next Wednesday, Chris.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I'm heading down to Florida. Faith and Sport will be on location.
There
I'll
you
call
go.
back.
Chris's
Oh,
eyes.
yeah, I'll go with you.
That's right. Chris's. I didn't know all these were perks, man. This is fantastic.
Yeah, we'll leave John here in the studio and we'll go to Florida.
Calling in from Fort Myers.
I appreciate that, you guys. Thank you.
Cocoa Beach.
We can all three do the show from Florida.
On the road.
NCAA basketball. This is yet a different time that the top 5 teams are different. However, the top 1 team, Baylor, has been there for 3 weeks. So this is the longest that anybody's been in the number 1 position. So it's top 5 are Baylor, Gonzaga, Kansas, San Diego State, who's 23-0, have yet to lose. The only team in the top 15 or 20 that is undefeated. But Louisville has moved in. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but Louisville is atop of the ACC above Duke.
Louisville or Louisville?
Louisville. That's
Louisville.
right. They would prefer Louisville.
Louisville.
Yeah.
Like over in Pondville.
How do you say the city where the Saints are from?
New Orleans.
No, yeah, see, you say it correctly. I say New Orleans.
Well,
What do you say,
got
Chris?
the guy.
New Orleans?
Yeah, there you go.
We got the guy coming in from Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge.
The Diocese of
That's
Baton
right.
Rouge.
Hey, you
He's
mentioned
probably listening right now.
So you wanted to know what Webb Simpson's up to, buddy? I like that. He won the Phoenix Open yesterday in a playoff. He's a Charlottean, and by all accounts, he's a solid guy. So let's keep rooting for him. Anyway, he won on the PGA yesterday. The PGA next week is at Pebble Beach Pro-Am. In the NBA, finally, the league is still reeling from the death of Kobe Bryant. Lakers hosted a Clippers game in L.A. a few nights ago, and that gave the city and the Lakers franchise an immediate chance to honor one of the all-time greats. And you know what I found interesting about him dying? And I know this is probably partly, emotional and so forth, but Magic Johnson himself said Kobe Bryant was the greatest Laker of all time.
How about that?
Would you agree with that? And I'm thinking, remember the big four, Jerry West, Kareem, Magic, and Kobe. That's a big statement, but of course it was emotional time, it was an emotional moment and so forth. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that, if that makes any sense.
That's a tough one because they all play in different eras.
They did. But still, we're going to miss that guy in the world of sport, and by all accounts, he was a good father and gave a lot back to the game. So there you have it, folks. Sports headlines that may change your life. So stay tuned. We're going to have Dan Borne coming in right after this. We'll have a neat conversation with him. Let me hand it over to Chris, then we'll go to break.
That's right, and we want to remind you that there's many ways for you to listen to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, AM 1270 Charlotte. And there's also our website, carolinacatholicradio.org, and the Carolina Catholic Radio app. And all through the week, Monday through Sunday, we have encore presentation times for you to catch up on Faith and Sport. If you miss any of the show here on Faith and Sport Live, you can hear an encore presentation of Faith and Sport Monday nights at 10, Tuesday nights at 8, Wednesday nights at 11, Thursday nights at 10, Friday nights at 11, and Saturday afternoons from 2 to 3, and or make that Saturday afternoons from 4 to 5 and Sunday afternoons from 2 to 3. So you've got plenty of opportunities to hear an encore presentation of Faith and Sport on Carolina Catholic Radio, AM 1270, carolinacatholicradio.org, and the Carolina Catholic Radio app. And we've got more Faith and Sport Live coming up right after the break here on Carolina Catholic Radio, AM 1270. It's Faith and Sport.
Hi, I'm Rick Rotundi, founder of Cenacle TV. My new series, Messiah, takes viewers on an epic journey from ancient Egypt to the Mount of Sacrifice to the fall of Rome. Hosted by Leonardo de Philippis, featuring 5 amazingly insightful experts and filmed at nearly 30 locations, Messiah is an experience you won't soon forget. And this year, when the Church invites us to engage the Bible more deeply, put Messiah on your viewing list. Pick up the Messiah DVD at your favorite reseller, or ask for my book, Messiah, Discover the One the Prophets Foretold. You can learn more about Messiah and watch the first episode free at See Messiah, that's SEE Messiah.com. I'm Rick Rotundi with Cenacle TV, here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network.
This is the Carolina Catholic Community Calendar. I'm Pam Cullen. St. Vincent de Paul is hosting a wedding vow renewal ceremony on Saturday, February the 1st after the 5 p.m. Mass. All married couples are encouraged to attend. The ceremony will be in English and Spanish. A reception follows. RSVP to 704-957-7819. Interested in exploring the aging process through scripture and reflections? St. Gabriel's may have an answer in a 4-part series on Wednesdays and Thursdays, February 5th through the 13th at 9 a.m. RSVP to 704-362-5047. St. Dorothy's is offering Couples Night Out, Embracing the Call to Love, on Friday, February the 14th. Enjoy a candlelight dinner and dancing at the Browley Estate, Mooresville. $85 for couples, semi-formal dress. RSVP to familiesgrowinginfaith.org. Send your upcoming parish event to feedback@carolinacatholicradio.org. For the Carolina Catholic Community Calendar, I'm Pam Cullen. God bless y'all.
Hi everyone, this is Tammy Harris. I'm a St. Gabriel Catholic Church parishioner and also the executive director and founder of the Ursus Institute. We do anti-human trafficking efforts, both locally and abroad. I'm not sure if you know this, but January is Anti-Human Trafficking Awareness Month. It's a month where it's very important to learn more about the truths and the realities of human trafficking. We're hosting a special event on Saturday, February 8th, so that you can learn more about the Ursus Institute, our goals, our mission, and more about the realities of human trafficking. Please go to my website, www.ursusinstitute.net, for information and location information. The theme is Buy a Heart, Save a Heart. A ticket gets you entry into the event, unlimited chocolate tasting, and a drink ticket. Ursus is spelled URSUS. Again, the website is www.ursusinstitute.net, and you can always reach out to me via text 704-519-7901. I hope to see you on Saturday, February 8th.
Hi folks, Dr. John Acquaviva here, host of one of the local shows on Carolina Catholic Radio called Faith in Sport. I invite you to check out my new book, Improving Body Image Through Catholic Teaching. This book is meant to address one of our culture's silent soul killers, feeling terrible about how we look. But remember, God has something to say about this as well. That's Improving Body Image Through Catholic Teaching, available at tanbooks.com or Amazon. And be sure to join me each Monday at 2 p.m. for Faith in Sport.
And we are back here with more Faith and Sport live on Carolina Catholic Radio Charlotte, AM 1270. Also streaming live at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. I'm producer and co-host Chris, joined in the studio with your host for Faith and Sport each week, Dr. John Acquaviva, and our special guest host today, live in studio, Mr. Ed Billick.
I like that. There's the crowd again. Okay, folks, you can sit down. We need to continue on with our show here. Folks, thanks again for joining us on the show, however, wherever you're listening. In a minute, I'm going to introduce our phone guest. He's Permanent Deacon Dan Borne. He's at the parish of St. John Vianney in the Diocese of Baton Rouge. He's the public address announcer for the LSU Tiger football, and I think basketball as well. It's going to be one of the things that we're going to talk to him about. But he's also the communications secretary for the diocese. And my first question is, after I introduce all that stuff, is which one do you spend more time doing? Right? That's a legitimate question, really. Communications director, the LSU Tiger public address announcer, a permanent deacon, and so forth.
Does he do the coach, football coach impersonation?
He might, but if he doesn't, me and Chris do. So yeah, we'll have to get a little fun with him. But one of the things before we bring him on, and I want you to get ready for this, but I also want our listeners to get ready for this. The last time that we had Deacon Dan on, he has a great voice like you do, Ed, and we did a sound off. And what I did is I gave folks Ed and Dan something to say, and it was the exact same thing. And then we had some type of, I think it was like $1 million in prizes and giveaways, right? It was something like that. Whoever had the best voice in our voice sound. Anyway, we're going to do this sound off again today. So I'm really looking forward to having Dan on for a couple of reasons. But before he comes on, I want to explain the difference between a deacon and a permanent deacon, right? There's what's called the transitional deacon. In the final year of being a seminarian, before you become a priest, you are ordained as a deacon by your local bishop, and that is what is called the transitional deacon. And then you serve in a parish primarily. You finish up your classes at the seminary, but you serve in a parish, and you can witness weddings, you can perform baptisms, and so forth.
This is on your way to the priesthood.
And that's called the transitional deacon.
Okay.
And then there's other folks as a result of Vatican II, and it really started this diaconate program in the 1960s. In 1970s, it became full-blown. And Deacon Dan Borne, our guest-to-be in just in a couple of minutes, he's one of those folks he was married, I'm sure, at the time, just like almost all of them are, and he just serves the church in a certain way. In fact, he's one of 3 deacons at St. John Vianney in Baton Rouge.
With a limited young men going to the priesthood, the diaconate, diaconate is extremely important in so many parishes.
That's right, and that's one of the reasons why I'm going to send Deacon Dan Borne off with a thank you for your service to the church, because he's really important, plays a really important role in the church, and in particular at St. John Vianney. Well, let's bring him on. We've talked a lot about Dan. Let's bring him on the show. Deacon Dan Borne, he's the public address announcer at LSU for LSU Tiger football and the communications secretary for the Diocese of Baton Rouge. Deacon Dan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back with you, and thanks for that little explanation of the diaconate. You know, it's the same diaconate to which both transitional and permanent deacons are ordained.
Yeah.
In fact, the priesthood is the next level of ordination, and of course the episcopacy is the third level. But once a deacon, always a deacon. When priests who are ordained, having been ordained to the diaconate, still are deacons. In fact, the Pope himself is still a deacon. So that's an important distinction to understand as well.
Interesting. It's kind of like me. I went on to earn my PhD, but it didn't mean that I didn't earn my master's before that. That
is exactly right. That's exactly. It's a great analogy.
Now, Deacon Dan, we have a lot of stuff to get here, but this is a legitimate question. During the football season, between the time as in your diaconate at St. John Vianney in the Diocese of Baton Rouge, being the public address announcer for LSU football, and the communications secretary, which one do you spend more time in during the week?
I spend more time, I would think, on my diaconate duties than I spend on my football duties. Because football is 7 or 8 home dates a year.
Sure,
okay?
Sure.
And then it's not every single weekend because you have away games and you have some open dates.
Right.
It gets a little busier. We have about 18 basketball games we play every year at home, and I do basketball in the Pete Maravich Assembly Center as well. So that gets kind of busy, but I've really never had a situation where I've had to pick and choose, with the exception of one time. We were playing South Carolina, scheduled to play them in South Carolina, and they had a terrible flood there, and they had to come back and play us here in Tiger Stadium. We had to host that game.
Huh.
But I had already scheduled a wedding that day, so I went down to New Orleans and officiated at the wedding, and I had a friend of mine do the football game for me. So they've been very rare times where there have been conflicts, but we've always been able to work them out.
And Dan, how long have you been doing both the public address announcing for football and basketball? Football longer than basketball, correct?
Yeah, I've been doing football for 34 years, and I am in my 32nd year at basketball.
Okay, so you're far behind there.
Oh, yeah. I've got 2 more years to kind of catch up with football. But then, football keeps going on, so maybe I'll never catch football. I don't know. We'll see.
That's right. Now, just going back to the diaconate for one more thing, is in most parishes, the permanent deacon gives the sermon one time per month, at one Mass or even a set of Masses per month. How about you? How often do you give a sermon or homily?
Well, it's strictly at the pleasure of the pastor. And there are some dioceses that, in some churches and some parishes, where a deacon would rarely preach. I preach whenever my pastor asks me to preach, and I generally tag team preach with him. We'll decide on a weekend, and we'll preach all 5 Masses together. Huh. He will open, I'll do the middle, and he will close. And the next time we preach together, he'll do the opening, and we'll switch it around. So we do what we call tag team preaching, where we both participate in the homily on given Sundays.
I've never heard of that. Yeah, Ed's nodding in approval, saying I like that. Now, just let me guess. When you open up the sermon, when you hand it off to the pastor, do you go, and now the pastor?
Yeah, right. Yeah, here's Father Tom, It's amazing how once you do this enough, you really kind of get into the head of the pastor, and he's into mine too. So directionally, on any given set of readings, it's just amazing how well we can coordinate those things and tie an opening with a middle and a close together. It's been a lot of fun.
I bet you the parishioners just enjoy that. It keeps the attention.
Yeah,
it gives
absolutely.
a little different dialogue kind of thing. That's pretty cool.
And there's movement too.
Yeah.
We block it. We move as we preach, and so it's both a visual as well as an audio type thing. And we've preached, for example, we preached 10 weekends in a row on evangelization. We
Awesome.
preached 10 weekends in a row on gratitude. And once you get into this, it becomes rhythmic and it becomes a lot of fun. And
That's right.
and the parishioners seem to be okay with it. So
Yeah, I bet they are. That's really neat. Well, we've been ping-ponging just in our 5 or 6 minute conversation with here Deacon Dan Borne of the Diocese of Baton Rouge between LSU football and basketball and your jobs in the diaconate at your parish, St. John Vianney. But let's ping-pong back to LSU football. How special was this past season? Just go ahead and take us down that lane about just how neat this last season was.
Well, it's the fourth time that we've won a national championship, and the first time was in '58. I was 12 years old, sat in that stadium in a 50-cent seat in the south end zone and watched us win that championship.
No way.
And then had the great blessing in 2003 and in 2007 to call the games for our national championships during those 2 years. This one was extremely, it was so different because of all the records that were set.
Yeah.
It was a special team to begin with. A new system was installed. The same players on offense this year we had last year, with the exception of one player, and that was our tight end, Thad Moss. He was the only addition to the offense. And yet, the thing that changed was not the players. The thing that changed was the system. Coach Ogeron brought in a young coach named Joe Brady, who assisted the offensive coordinator, Steve Ensminger, and they designed a system that highlighted the strength of the team. Those strengths were there last year; they just weren't highlighted. But they were highlighted this year to their maximum. And of course, we won all the games. Won all the games decisively. The toughest game we had was against Auburn at 3 points, but there was never any doubt in that game who's going to win it. We had control over it, and we had control over every other game as well.
That's right.
Joe Burrow won the Heisman. Jamar Chase won the Outstanding Receiver Award. Derek Stingley, a freshman first-team All-American, won the Outstanding Defensive Back. We won the Outstanding Offensive Line Award. Coach Ogeron won every Coach of the Year award that you could win. And so when you add all those up, it was a great season and one of the greatest seasons in the history of NCAA football, and a great season to have as NCAA football, college football celebrated its 150th.
Absolutely. So. Folks, we're being joined here on Faith and Sport. You're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio by Deacon Dan Borne. He's a permanent deacon at St. John Vianney in the Diocese of Baton Rouge, but he also serves as the public address announcer for LSU Tiger, Louisiana State University Tiger football and basketball. So we're ping-ponging back and forth between his duties as a deacon and his relationship with LSU sports. A lot has been said about Ed Orgeron, right? And most of it is either tongue-in-cheek and, kind of putting a magnifying glass on his accent and his voice and so forth. But my guess is he is who he seems he is. But Dan, tell us about something about Ed Orgeron that most people don't know.
Well, he is he is what you see. There's not a pretentious bone in his body. He grew up in La Rose, Louisiana, and I was born in Thibodaux, Louisiana, and La Rose and Thibodaux are about 40 miles apart along Bayou Lafourche. And so I know the family that he came from. I know the hard scrabble that he had to deal with just to get into college. I know that he went into coaching and coached at Ole Miss and was not successful, but learned a lot. Coached at Southern Cal, was not given that head coach job, and I wonder what the Southern Cal fans think now after what he did at LSU.
Yeah.
I think the key thing about him is he's as genuine as they come, And when he gets into a living room with a mom and a dad and an athlete, what you see is what you get. The commitments he makes are going to be kept. The young men that he recruits are going to be introduced into a tremendous academic and athletic setting at LSU. And that's why we've got really good players that have come here, because Coach Orgeron has made commitments and he's kept them.
Dan, did you get a winning ring for winning the championship?
That, in fact, is pending. I have winning rings from 03 and 07. I've been blessed with that. I've also got winning rings for Final Four we went to, and the conference championship that we won last year in basketball. So I've got a few of those. They are a little ostentatious and very hard to wear in public, but at certain athletic events I'll wear them.
Well, being a big Beatles fan, one of the reasons I appreciated Ringo Starr was that he wore those ostentatious rings. So I'd like to do the same. So Dan, if I come down there, just do me a favor. Let me wear this most recent ring, at least during Mass, while you and the priest are doing your back and forth homily. How's that?
Well, listen, that would be great. I think some of the parishioners may think that you're a bishop in civilian clothes. These rings are more like,
the Pope's ring.
Much more elaborate than that, as a matter of fact. They're really elaborate. They're kind of they're real bling bling,
All right. Well, listen. Of course, I knew this time would just jet on by us. So we're gonna, we had so much stuff to talk about, but I would like to think that you would join us again upon just about any invitation. So,
you got Joe
Burrow.
Well, Joe Brady, who's now the offensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers. Maybe come out and visit him, and we can have you in studio.
We would love that, Dan. Did you know that?
Listen, he is just I haven't met Joe Brady. I know I've met Steve and Coach O and those guys. I haven't met Joe Brady, but he's right where he's always desired to be in his young life, and that is a coordinator for a professional football team, and we surely wish him well. And I'll be on your show anytime. It's easy. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate that. Okay, listen, we're going to end the same way we ended last time, Dan. You might remember when you were on Faith and Sport, which was on Radio Maria at the time.
Absolutely.
We did a voice-off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and forth. You get to do it first. Ed will do it second, and the fans are going to chime in, and they're going to vote who has the best announcer voice.
I'm pretty nervous. This is like going to those fantasy camps.
No, I know.
And you got the pro.
I know, Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
I know, it's like, taking swings against Mickey Mantle, but we're going to try to do it, Ed. So here it is. The first one is simple. Dan, you go first, and just simply say, ladies and gentlemen, Heisman Trophy winner, Joe Burrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, Heisman Trophy winner, Joe Burrow.
Heisman Trophy winner, Joe Burrow, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good.
I vote for you.
Yeah, they're very good. Okay, let's do all three of them. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Ed's first this time. If you lost your Ed Orgeron bobblehead doll, please come to the Lost and Found.
If you've lost your Ed Orgeron bobblehead doll, stop by the Lost and Found.
Go ahead, Dan.
If you've lost your Ed Orgeron bobblehead dolls, come by the Lost and Found.
I like it.
Very good. All right, our producer Chris is going, is this what you guys do when I'm not here? All right, last one, Dan. A red Honda Civic has its lights on in the parking lot. A red Honda Civic has its lights on in the parking lot.
Okay, let me innovate that a little bit.
That's it. Go ahead.
Will the owner of a red Honda Civic report to his car? His lights are on, his motor is running, and his doors are locked. That actually happened.
I bet it did.
It did.
It absolutely did, man. The guy left his car running and locked it.
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt that at all. Go ahead, Ed. Give it a go.
For those of you who own a red Honda Civic, please all come out to the parking lot because your lights are on, and we got to move the car. Anyhow, Dan, you are the pro.
Away.
I love it. Yeah, it's getting towed.
Hey, you guys, Ed, Dan, this is absolute truth. At St. Matt's, our parish, and Dan, you probably were listening earlier. You might have heard this. Where Ed and I met, we belong to the same big parish in Charlotte, St. Matthew. And after church, I was walking up to my car, and the security guard approached me, and he said, "Is this your car?" And I said, well, "Yeah." Like how in the heck did he know that? He goes, "You locked the door, and the engine's been running the entire time."
How much fuel was left?
I did do that for the entire Mass, but thankfully it was only an hour Mass, and we had plenty of...
Man.
Yes, and so it was, what you said was funny in more ways than one, but it's absolute truth.
Hey, Dan, before John goes back to you, just thanks for all you do for the Catholic Church, for your parishioners. Thank you for LSU football fans. I've always admired stadium announcers and what they do and how they embrace the game with the fans. So just a thank you, and thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate it,
Well,
Dan.
you are so you're also very welcome. I deeply appreciate it. It's always fun to be asked, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.
I appreciate it, Dan. You have a good day, brother, and keep up the good work. And we're going to ask our audience, to pray for you and your continued service to the church.
And we will likewise. God bless you all. Thank you.
Appreciate that, folks. Well, there you have it. Permanent Deacon Dan Borne, St. John Vianney, Diocese of Baton Rouge, and the public address announcer for LSU Tiger football and basketball.
I was getting nervous
going
up against the pro, My palms are a little sweaty.
How easily he ad-libbed that.
I'm on local radio.
And how easily he ad-libbed that.
Because you got to ad-lib. You have to do this kind of work because stuff happens so fast.
That's right.
Stadium announcer like he is, that was beautiful.
I know. That
was
good stuff.
I've never heard of tag teaming a homily.
I know. I found that fascinating.
Oh, that's great.
In fact, think about how long you and I have been Catholic, and I've never seen that.
No.
The only thing I saw that was even remotely like that, I remember I was down in a parish in Florida, and the priest said, "Who here speaks English only?" And about 5 or 6 people raised their hand, and so he did half the homily in English and the other half in Spanish. But it was nothing like that.
The Eucharistic celebration is so special in the Catholic Church. The liturgy, the word liturgy, the Eucharist. But the homily sometimes can make that day for a parishioner, and to tag team a homily, I think that's novel.
Very good. Okay, let's do this. We'll do one quick Q&A with Dr. A, and then we'll end it with the sports fact of the week. Just ask me the first question, and then we'll move on.
There was some talk in the NBA about them changing the logo from Jerry West to Kobe Bryant, the NBA logo.
That's right.
Your thoughts there?
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. The timing, I think, was poor ultimately, but I understand why they did it. And just to let people know what we're talking about, every major league sport has a logo. Like the NFL is a shield. Major League Baseball is the ball coming by the batter. They're all red, white, and blue. Same thing with the NBA. But the NBA never has admitted it officially, but it's Jerry West dribbling in that red and blue silhouette. They're talking about moving Kobe into the same thing, but the reason they're not going to do it is 2 reasons. One, first of all, it's going to seem very reactionary since he just died, 8 days ago. But the other thing is, if they acknowledge it's him, the family could ultimately sue for some type of rights to that, and the NBA doesn't want to give that up.
But giving him the entrance into the NBA Hall of Fame is perfect. Reminds me when Roberto Clemente passed away, so good job.
So are you referring to the fact that he won't have to wait the normal...
Exactly.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it. All right, the sports fact of the week. I can just do this in 1 minute. Get this. Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, right? They're up 10-0. Heartbreaking lead to give up. Do you know he was the offensive coordinator in Super Bowl 51 for the Atlanta Falcons when they were up 28-3 against the Patriots, and they lost in overtime 34-28.
God, how do you handle that?
Yeah, brutal. Anyway, folks, there you have it. Faith in Sport. Ed, thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure, guys. Chris, thank you for the work you do as well.
Thanks to Deacon Dan Borne joining me on the show today. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Please join us next time here on Carolina Catholic Radio for more Faith in Sport.
You've been listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, AM 1270 Charlotte, also streaming online at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We want to thank you for tuning in for Faith and Sport on this Monday afternoon and invite you to tune in again to Faith and Sport next Monday afternoon from 2 to 3 for Faith and Sport Live. And make sure you tune in throughout the week for our encore presentations of Faith and Sport in case you missed any of the show and want to catch up on your Faith and Sport. Tune in to the Carolina Catholic Radio Network for more Faith and Sport. And as always, have a blessed week, a great week, and we'll meet you back here next Monday afternoon for more Faith and Sport.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.